Michael Shannon from Thankerton here. Just a wee update on the crops and the summer we've had. So we had quite a bit of drought. Grass growth has been up and down. Some weeks have been really good as a sort of a measure of how the crops would be doing. But our Swedes established really well. They were sown at the beginning of May. Initially they were sprayed off with Roundup. They've had 90 kilos of 10, 26, 26 at sowing. And then the Swift and the Kale was sown in around Highland Showtime. So the Swift was actually sown on the 26th of June and the Kale was sown on the 22nd of June. Both those crops also had 90 kilos of 10, 26, 26 at sowing. And then in late July there, the whole area, Swedes, Kale and Swift, has all had an application of 110 kilos to the acre. All my figures are per acre. 110 kilos per acre of nitrogen. Each crop as it's sown is sprayed off first of all with Roundup to try and get me a clean seed bed. Then the only other spray that it's had this year actually has been an application of foliar feed, which contains boron, sulfur, molybdenum and manganese. And it only had that in the middle of August. So one other thing to mention about the crop, this field is split in two. And one of the areas was low for phosphate and one of the areas was very low for phosphate. There was a bit of a mix-up with fertiliser delivery in that the wrong stuff arrived, so we were a little bit late, and it wasn't until about July that we were able to spread the DAP onto the crop, by which times all the crops were pretty well established. I don't think that's taken much effect on it so far. Although the Kale, which is the area that was very low, has definitely sprung. It really has started to go in the last few weeks. It's quite noticeable. Whether that's starting to take effect. The other issue is when it was actually sprayed, it was really dry, and it's only been in the last couple of weeks that without any moisture at all, the DAP needed some moisture to break down. That's now gone completely since we've had a little bit of rain. As far as the actual growth of the crop has been, the Swedes grew really well in the early part of the season because they got a little bit of moisture. They were established and the bulbs had started to form by the time the drought took hold. We then had a little bit of moisture and they took off again. And then we went into what I'm reckoning we had a sort of like 2 droughts this summer. The Kale really struggled through the drought. It really didn't get going at all, but it's started to go now. We've had a little bit of moisture, and the Swift I think is still quite struggling a wee bit with the moisture, but I think that'll come once the moisture starts to come. So our moisture level, our soil moisture level is sitting at 144 at the moment, and on that scale, anything over 60 affects grass growth. So there's potential there. Definitely we're still in a deficit as far as the ground's concerned. Like when cattle are running across grass fields at the moment, you can hear it's like a stampede. We've had 6.6 mils in the last week, but we're still not anywhere near enough moisture. Like the ground doesn't feel as if we've had any moisture whatsoever. So the crops so far have been pretty clean. The Swift, can't really see any weeds in it at all, but it's quite an aggressive plant to get going, so I wouldn't have expected to see much. The Swedes did have now, in the last few weeks, there's more thistles in it and maybe a few other weeds, but nothing really to concern us at this moment. Last year we had completely the opposite, where red shank really took hold in the Swede crop, and we really had a real problem there with that. And that actually came across now even into the whole crop the following year. All those plants had seeded, and then it's a filthy, the strip where the Swedes were was filthy, and with a really poor crop and a really poor yield. But this year I'm really happy with the Swede crop. The Swede has the canopy filled in nicely. The bulbs are starting to fill up nicely, and as the moisture comes, we still get quite a few weeks of growth. I don't know what temperature it is today, maybe about 18, 19 degrees. and it's certainly a very comfortable, a good fiery day. There's plenty of growth today. The kale was harder to establish, but the canopy is really filled in now, so I'm quite happy that the kale will drown out most of the weeds. And it's quite noticeable in this field. There are a couple of wetter bits, wetter hollows, and in those bits, all the crops are absolutely, like there's a difference probably of about maybe a foot to 2 feet in the height of the crops in those wetter areas. So much better establishment, and it's obvious moisture has been the biggest challenge this year.